Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for being here. I have no announcement at the top, so I'll go straight to your questions. Ben.
Thanks, Jay. There's a suddenly optimistic tone, it seems, on the Hill about getting all the last-minute business done, including the payroll tax. I wasn't sure I heard that kind of tone from the president today. So where do we stand from the White House perspective? Are we close to a deal, or at least closer to a deal?
Well, two things. What you heard from the president today is him making clear what his position is, which is that he's out there making sure that middle-class Americans, working Americans, 160 million Americans, don't wake up on New Year's Day to find that their taxes went up because Congress refused to take action. That's his number one priority. And he is insisting that Congress do its work, that Congress do the work that they should be able to do very easily because Republicans say they support this, and take care of the working men and women in this country, everyone who gets a paycheck. So it is also true that there are ongoing conversations happening on the Hill and among leaders on the Hill and representatives of the president to try to see how we can get this done. And it should be able to get done, both the payroll tax cut extension, the extension of unemployment insurance, and the spending bill, the so-called omnibus that Congress needs to take care of before it goes. But what cannot happen is that Congress takes care of its spending bill but doesn't take action to ensure that Americans' taxes go up. I mean, what would Americans think? It would certainly, I think, raise the number, the percentage of Americans who have already told, in I think NBC's poll, more than 40% who say this is the worst Congress in history, and we have a long history now. That number would certainly go up, and the approval numbers would go down, and that would be just and right. We don't think that's going to happen because Republicans have indicated that they want the payroll tax cut extended, which is a change from the position we heard just a few short weeks ago. And we're we're certainly encouraged by signs of a willingness by everyone to work together to get this important business done.
No matter how the payroll tax and the unemployment benefits are ultimately paid for, assuming this gets done, is it an article of faith of the White House that the wealthy must pay more in some fashion?
Let's be clear about what the president's priority is. The president's priority is to ensure that Americans, 160 million Americans, don't see their taxes go up on average $1,000. He made clear in his full American Jobs Act proposal the way that he would pay for all of it, including the payroll tax cut extension and expansion. And he certainly believes it is eminently fair, both in the way that he preferred paying for it and in the way that Senate Democrats preferred paying for it, that it's not too much to ask, referring to the Senate Democratic version, 300,000 Americans, the 300,000 wealthiest Americans, to pay a little bit more so that 160 million Americans who are getting a paycheck every week don't see their taxes go up. That, to him, seemed fair. The priority here, however, was not the pay for. The focus on the pay for is slightly targeted because the priority here is making sure Americans don't have their taxes go up. Hardworking, middle-class Americans don't have their taxes go up. And we have said, I have said from the beginning of this process that we are open to different means of paying for it. And certainly the president's preference is that this tax cut extension be paid for. We note with some irony that Republicans, at least in the House, have it within their own bylaws that tax cuts don't need to be paid for, but there is this insistence when it comes to middle-class tax cuts that not be the case. Regardless, we're open to other pay-fors. We have been from the beginning. The issue here is, will Americans see their taxes go up on January 1st?
The last one, the president was planning to leave for Hawaii on the 17th. When is he planning to leave now?
Well, the president has made clear on earlier occasions that he will stay here as long as it takes to ensure that Congress does not leave town without extending the payroll tax cut and making sure that Americans don't have their taxes go up on January 1st. I don't have a crystal ball to tell you when this will be resolved. As you noted at the beginning, there are some signs that cooperation may be taking place and that compromise might occur and that we can get these issues resolved sooner rather than later, but I would not hazard to guess when that would be. Yes?
Thanks, Jay. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about the White House strategy on the payroll tax cuts. The decision to drop the millionaire surtax, how did that come about? Was it the president? Was it the Democratic leadership? And why now? And what do you think about this perception that this means that you're caving into the Republicans?
I'll go back to what I said to Ben. The president's priority here hasn't been to raise taxes. The president's priority has been to lower taxes, to lower them, to extend a payroll tax cut and expand it for the middle class. He believed that it was the fair and right way to pay for it to ask, in the case of the Senate Democratic version, 300,000 millionaires and billionaires to pay a little bit more so that Americans, 160 million of them, could have their taxes reduced next year. But the issue here hasn't been the pay-fors, as I just said in answer to Ben. We've made clear from the beginning that we were open to pay-fors, that alternative pay-fors, as long as they were economically responsible and they didn't stick it to the middle class, the very people you're trying to help with this tax cut. So what your question contains within it is the observation that Republicans refused to ask 300,000 millionaires and billionaires to pay a little bit more so that 160 million working and middle-class Americans didn't have their taxes go up. They refused, all but a few, or one, I guess, in the case in the Senate. So we're open to figuring out a way how to do this that, again, is economically responsible and doesn't hurt the very people that we're trying to help. But the priority here has not been the pay for, it has been ensuring that Americans who are working hard as we emerge from this Great Recession don't get a tax hike on January 1st. That would be a very unwelcome New Year's gift to the American people, and Congress should not give that gift. Let me move around, and I'll come to you, Jake. George.
Any reaction from the White House?
Jake, I've been doing this for months.
It's annoying.
Oh, I'm sorry. Tell it to your colleagues.
I like it.
I'll get to you.
I'm going to break with decades of precedent and just going to, instead of just every time.
I'm going to ensure that the 49 people in these seats and move back and forth. And
No, it's
I'm
America
absolutely
wants to know
going
about your position on bestiality.
I'm absolutely going to take care of everyone in the front row. Yes, George.
Here I thought we were friends. Any White House reaction to Democratic Senator Wyden joining with Paul Ryan on a compromise on the privatization of Medicare today?
George, as you know, President Obama is committed to ensuring that Medicare is strong and affordable for seniors and taxpayers. That's why the President proposed a plan to strengthen Medicare, cut waste, fight fraud, and reduce Medicare and Medicaid costs by $320 billion over the next 10 years as part of a balanced approach to reducing the deficit. And President Obama has made clear that any proposal to reform Medicare must protect our seniors and preserve the promise to current and future beneficiaries of guaranteed affordable Medicare coverage. We are concerned that Wyden-Ryan, the proposal you mentioned, like Congressman Ryan's earlier proposal, would undermine rather than strengthen Medicare. The Wyden-Ryan proposal could, over time, cause the traditional Medicare program to, quote, wither on the vine, because it would raise premiums, forcing many seniors to leave traditional Medicare and join private plans, and it would shift costs from the government to seniors. At the end of the day, this plan would end Medicare as we know it for millions of seniors. The Wyden-Ryan proposal is the wrong way to reform Medicare. That's our position. Jake?
If you don't support the Wyden-Ryan plan, is the president going to be proposing a plan to solve the problem of Medicare and funding in the future?
What I mentioned at the top is the president has, in fact, proposed that as part of his comprehensive deficit reduction and debt control plan, and he looks forward to working with Congress on that. And his whole point during...
That's a solution, or I thought it just nibbles around the edges, doesn't it?
No, the whole point that the president made during the negotiations this summer in the debt ceiling, and again when he put forward his proposal for the supercommittee, is that if we approach this in a balanced way, the way that bipartisan commissions recommend that we approach it, the way that the vast majority of Americans want us to approach it, we don't have to privatize Medicare. We don't have to severely constrain Medicaid. We don't have to slice or slash programs that fund education or innovation or clean energy, because if we do it in a balanced way, we can reform entitlements in a way that preserves Medicare for seniors and doesn't stick them with a $6,000 a year cost hike as the original Ryan plan would.
I just want to make sure I understand. You're saying that what the president proposed is all that needs to be done to contain the growth of healthcare in Medicare and whatever problems Medicare creates. Because that's what the Ryan Wyden plan is attempting to do.
It was attempting to do, although within it, as I understand it, there's no, even in their own proposal, there's only the hope of cost savings. So what the president has proposed, as I just laid out, would result in $320 billion of savings over the next 10 years, would reform the entitlement programs in a way that would continue to allow them to provide the essential services that, in the case of Medicare, seniors deserve and must have, and would not require the kind of radical privatization or ending of Medicare as we know it that the Ryan proposal suggests and that the Wyden-Ryan plan gets you to eventually.
So that's a yes, that all that would need to be done to Medicare is what the
Well, I'm
president...
not saying that 5 years, 10 years down the road that, I mean, we are always having to, push forward with reforms in different parts of our government. But the president's proposal, as you know, dealt, in an expansive way. $4 trillion, if you include the trillion in savings through the Budget Control Act, dealt with our need to reduce our deficit and get our debt under control at the same level of magnitude as the Ryan plan, and it did it without asking seniors to bear the burden of the cost. So this goes back to the need for balance. You don't have to do something this radical. As the president has said, our problems are not as great as they are in some countries, that we would have to do something that radical if we were only willing to take a balanced approach, which is what the president...
Ryan plan. I'm just saying...
No, not
you're actually saying that's all that needs to be done.
Plan.
Okay. The other question I have is, Speaker Boehner today said there's no need to tie the omnibus bill to the payroll tax because he is willing to keep Congress here, to keep the House here, so that as soon as the Senate passes a payroll tax fix, the House will reconvene within 24 hours and act on whatever the Senate passes. Your response?
Well, I'm not going to negotiate on behalf of the Senate or the President here. These are ongoing conversations. What is unacceptable is the idea that we should take a promise of future action on behalf of 160 million Americans when, as you know, once Congress passes a spending bill, they can go home, and it sounds like the Speaker would let them go home. He might call them back, or he might not. I mean, again, it's a promise. What we want is...
So you're saying you don't believe his promise?
Well, I'm saying I don't know. What is essential here, the absolute top priority that this President has, is that Congress make sure it does not go home on its vacation until it has taken care of the payroll tax cut extension and unemployment insurance extension, because it would be unacceptable, he believes, for Congress to hike taxes on 160 million Americans as it's heading out the door here.
Okay. He's saying you don't need to tie the two, right? You don't need to do this, and he says he's trying to avoid a government shutdown tomorrow night. Congressman Moran has said the deal has been done and the Congress is ready to act.
Well, the deal's not done until some of these issues that Senator Reid and others have mentioned, I've mentioned, need to be resolved. They are resolvable, no question. There's no need to shut down the government. There is time to get all of it done. And if more time is needed, Congress should do what it's done 7 times already in this year and pass a CR, a short-term CR, just to ensure that they get their work done. There's no reason to talk about government shutdown.
I guess I'm just surprised that the Speaker of the House is basically pledging, you don't need to do this, I'll keep the Congress